I'm Eric Welander. Welcome back to my channel. So you might have heard me or other people mention the concept of a HomeKit hub or an Apple Home hub and wondered, how is this thing actually controlling my home? And then you might hear other companies like Philips Hue, Lutron, Aqara talking about their hubs and what's the difference between that and an Apple Home hub, and why are then these other ones called bridges sometimes and not hubs? Not to mention things like Home Assistant or Home Bridge or Hoobs, which are more advanced versions of these. So what of all this stuff do you actually need, and what is it actually doing in your home? Well, in order to make your smart home smart, the smart processing has to go somewhere. And when you first set up your Apple Home with just one or two devices, then you can just control those straight from your phone. But if you want to do things like automate your lights when you're away from home to turn on, or set up a HomeKit secure video camera to record clips, you're going to need an Apple Home hub in your home to take care of this processing for you while your phone is not there. So an Apple Home or HomeKit hub is just a recent Apple TV, a HomePod or HomePod Mini, or maybe other devices in the future that then can serve as the brains of your smart home. It's what's running all of your Apple Home commands and telling all your other devices what to do. Now, you might have also heard in the past that an iPad can be used as an Apple Home hub, and that's technically not the case anymore, because in 2022, Apple released this sort of behind the scenes architecture update of how Apple Home works, and then it had some bugs, so they pulled it back and then re-released it in 2023, and it's good now. If you haven't upgraded, I've been using it for a long time, so go ahead and upgrade to the new architecture if you haven't already. But with that upgrade, you are no longer able to use your iPads as a home hub. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you might not even realize that you actually have a home hub already, and that's because when you add something like a HomePod to the Apple Home app, it just takes care of making it a hub in your home. And with an Apple TV as well, if you just add the Apple TV into the Apple Home app, which isn't mandatory, but is something you definitely want to do, then it will go ahead and make that Apple TV a home hub. Now, maybe like me, you have multiple HomePods or HomePod Minis or Apple TVs around your home, and those can all serve as home hubs, but there's always going to be one that's the boss. Now, it doesn't mean that the other home hubs aren't helping with things, especially relaying things like Thread or Bluetooth signal, but there's always one that's the boss.
I think that pretty much sums it up.
Now, you can't, unfortunately, at this point, pick which one you want to be the boss. Your smart home will just do that for you, but you can see which one is the active one or the boss hub. So you just go into the Apple Home settings, and then under hubs and bridges, you'll see one of your hubs listed as connected. And that means that one is the main primary boss hub, and the rest of them are all listed as standby. But maybe you've also heard me or other people refer to a hub as a bridge and say, oh, no, you shouldn't call that a hub because it's actually a bridge. And it's technically a hub and a bridge. A lot of smart home companies over the years ship little boxes that then are the means to control all of their smart home devices. And in that case, when that company is just talking about their little box and all of their accessories they sell, that little box is basically the hub to connect all of those devices to the rest of your smart home. So in their case, it is a hub. But when you bring that hub into Apple Home, it's not running any of your Apple Home automations for you. It's just bringing those devices into your Apple Homes. So these hubs are actually serving as a bridge when you're talking about it in the midst of Apple Home and HomeKit. If you're running an Apple Home automation, let's say when I leave my home, then turn off my lights in Apple Home, even if you're telling your Lutron lights to do that, that's an automation that's running on your Apple Home hub, and then telling your Lutron lights what to do by going through the Lutron hub as a bridge. Now, another detail with bridges in Apple Home, or these hubs, that can be a little bit confusing at first is if you're setting up a new device, let's say you're adding a new Philips Hue smart bulb to your home and you've already added your Philips Hue hub into Apple Home, then once you add that Philips Hue smart bulb in Philips Hue's app and system, it'll just appear in your Apple Home. Usually it defaults to the room where your bridge or hub actually is, but sometimes those room assignments don't always sync up quite as intended between different smart home systems. So you want to go ahead and go into the Apple Home app once you're done setting up that device and make sure it's assigned to the room that makes sense and has a name that makes sense. Now, if you're into Apple Home, you're probably well aware that there are lots of great devices out there that don't work with Apple Home for one reason or another. And there are a lot of clever developers out there who've built custom bridges like HomeBridge to serve as that missing hub or bridge that company will never ship. So then these developers will write unofficial integrations to talk to those smart home accessories and then bridge those connections into Apple Home. So then your Apple Home just sees it as a light bulb or a camera or whatever missing product you already have in your home that otherwise wouldn't work at all in your Apple Home. Now, these are unofficial. They're not supported officially by the manufacturers of any of these products, and they're not officially certified as Apple Home products by Apple, but it still works a lot of the time. And things like Hoobs have made the concept of HomeBridge much easier because Hoobs just comes with everything pre-set up for you. Another one you might have heard in this line is Home Assistant. Home Assistant can do lots of things, including acting as this kind of a bridge into your Apple Home. And they have products like the Home Assistant Green, which make that even easier than it's ever been to set up a Home Assistant instance. And one other product to keep in mind here, especially if you're into Google Nest and the Google Home setup of products, is the Starling Home Hub. It's a very pre-packaged, well-done solution that then just attaches all of your Google Nest cameras and other things and brings them into your Apple Home in a lot of really slick ways. And I actually did a video about this a long time ago, and I still use this bridge in my home. So even though this is an old video on this channel, I still think that this device is a good buy years later if you're into Google and want to bring some of that stuff into your Apple Home, especially for things like cameras, which we don't know what kind of support those might get with Matter in the future. So I've linked that video somewhere here on the screen if you're interested. And by the way, with your Apple Home hubs, with your Apple TVs, those can connect to Ethernet. And let's say you have maybe a mesh wireless access point near your TV where you have your Apple TV. It's a great idea to connect your Apple TV to Ethernet there. It'll make your home more reliable. And speaking of that, I made a whole video about how to make your Apple Home more reliable. So that's linked somewhere here on the screen. Thanks again so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.